Our mission at the Marin County Free Library is to provide welcoming, equitable, and inclusive opportunities for all to connect, learn, and grow. We do this together in our programming, and we do this work in our internal operation. To radically reimagine MCFL and facilitate culture changes towards greater equity and inclusion within our workforce and with the communities that we serve. To fulfill this mission, the Marin County Free Library Equity Alliance team members agreed to learn together and build a strong and effective teamwork environment.
I've been at MCFL for 20 years, hard to believe. My first day here at my MCFL welcome reception, I was introduced to the county's Equal Employment Opportunity Officer. I thought it was weird, but I didn't understand the importance of her being there. MCFL was doing poorly in diversity hiring. I was the only Black regular hire and one of only 2 persons of color in the department. There are several associations that come with being the only, but since this is a short video, I'll just mention a couple. At Marin City, the Children's and Teens collection didn't reflect the youth living in the community. The adult collection was only slightly better. I had to special order a lot of books and resources so that my patrons would no longer feel invisible. I had a hard time getting others to believe they needed some of those books in their branches. One of the hardest things about being the only was lack of support. I didn't have anyone to debrief with. No one could understand the stresses and aggressions I experienced, so it became important for me to advocate for racial inclusion and diversity. There's been a lot of change over the last 20 years. I'm no longer the only, thank goodness. We've made a lot of progress in hiring a diverse staff and some progress toward a diverse collection. And we have an administration who know there's still a lot of work to do and is willing to support the hard work ahead. And I am now chair of the Equity Alliance Committee, and we're ready to learn and work and get things done.
Well, the library field of practice has really been very much traditionally white women, and that's been its tradition from the beginning. It all started with women's clubs. Most of the public libraries started that way. So really, now generationally, we are representing that. We generally have mostly white women that work in the libraries. So it's really been in the last at least probably 25 years where it's become recognized that we need to fix that, because it matters to our communities that when they come in the library to feel welcome, that they need to see people who look like them. And I think even more importantly is through people. It's really important that a child would come in and see themselves in that librarian, so that when they grow up and think, I would like to be that librarian. The first way I think we let the public know about it is by having a diverse workforce, so that when they come into our libraries, they see that it's different and maybe not the library they knew in the past. And then I think for the mission, again, we have to be intentional about our equity work. One of the things we did just a little while ago was understand that our mission didn't have that as a defined focus. So we changed our mission, so it said we were welcoming, and it said we were equitable, and it said we were inclusive. And we mean that in all of our programs, and we mean that in every way that library workers provide services to our community. I have a real sincere commitment to this, and I think that it's going to take all of us to be effective. I think that we will get more and more critical mass as we get more and more diverse workforce. But I think those of us that have power and authority, we do recognize that power and authority, and we have to use it wisely and intentionally. So that means making sure that we look at the barriers that are out there for applicants and try to erase them. And we have a tough situation here in Marin because it's so difficult to live here. It's so expensive. So I think that takes more creative approaches. But I think our best diversity strategy has always been word of mouth. We can also be networking at all kinds of conferences and talking it up so that when people are looking, because it's a big choice when people come to work at a place. You really want to have someone who you trust say, yes, you would be welcome there. Yes, it would be a good place to work. And then they would probably support that. One of the things that excited me the most when I came to Marin County a little more than 5 years ago was the fact that the Board of Supervisors had 4 E's. And one of those E's was education. And more in our country, you can't say education without saying educational equity. It's probably the number one issue that we have in terms of how unequal that opportunity is. So if you went to a community where there are barriers because of race, because of economics, because of all kinds of things, you're going to get less educational resources. That's truly tragic. So I was glad that the Marin County leadership said that was a goal. But the library really stepped up and said, we're going to make a difference. And there are folks that say libraries really aren't in the public education space, and I completely dispute that. That's absolutely not true. If not us, who? So we have an intentional focus on communities here in Marin that have those inequities in education, and we put focus on them. We do that really with resources, and that might mean money, humans, spaces to give all children as much opportunity as we possibly can, and to do whatever we can to close the educational gaps. And we are the best place to do that. We're the best things to do things like digital literacy, because it all begins with literacy.
A group of us attended the Joint Conference of Librarians of Color, where we realized how powerful our Equity Alliance could be if we made racial equity the focus, if we specifically called it out as the county does, and if we centered it on the voices and perspectives of people of color. We could address questions like, how do our racial experience in the work environment, both personally and people of color overall, affect our willingness to stay? How does recruitment and retention for people of color need to differ from mainstream recruitment and retention? What does a safe place or environment mean for people of color? Is racial equity reflected in our career development plans, our communications, our collections, our programs? The questions that I just mentioned are shaping our approach to increasing equity in our library system and the communities we serve. Join us as we grow equity and inclusion.
All right, Etienne, I think people want to know what our Equity Alliance is and what it's going to be moving forward. So basically, from my understanding, the Equity Alliance is a mechanism to gather information, develop strategies, celebrate successes, and I think at the core, it's a safe space to have those difficult conversations that we all know exist, and sometimes we're just a little bit timid into bringing up. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think the Equity Alliance is a group that can affect change in the organization and the library to make it more diverse and make us more equitable to our staff and to our patrons. So the Equity Alliance is comprised of different people from different classifications and different branches and different backgrounds. That come from all over the MCFL organization. So what do you think, if somebody wants to join, what they should bring to the Equity Alliance?
So the Equity Alliance is definitely an open group. We accept members who have the passion to really make MCFL what we envision it being, an inclusive and diverse organization. And anyone who wants to join, the only requirement is that they come with a desire to help achieve those goals, that are willing to put the work in, that they're aware of what they don't know and that this is a learning environment, and that they're willing to teach. We like to be accountable for what we don't know, as well as what we're teaching others and helping them help us achieve our objective.
So how do you think people can learn about equity?
That's pretty interesting. I think the Equity Alliance in its just organically is a learning environment. But I think right now we have members who bring their experience with them, their hardships, their traumas really, and how they've dealt with those things. So I think for the most part, the learning experience does come from our own personal upbringings, from what we learned from our parents who may have migrated here from a different country, which is the case for me. But mostly is from our own experience. But we also are members of different organizations. We reach out to organizations who are further along with their equity initiatives, and we go to conferences like the Joint Conference for Librarians of Color, which Etienne both.
Yes, I
both of us
learned a
went
lot
to.
there.
Do you want to elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, so, and I think listening to other people from different backgrounds is very important. There's some things I learned about Native Americans that I didn't know going to JCLC, and it's important to be able to listen to people because we don't know their backgrounds, we haven't experienced their backgrounds. I think there are also other ways of learning. One thing that we do at Marin City Library, we have a social justice movie night once a month, and we show documentaries on racial equity, history, a lot of a wide variety of things that focus on social justice. I think there are other ways possibly that we can also learn about equity is through books, going to conferences like you said, and then just speaking to people.
One of the benefits to having representation on our Equity Alliance from different locations and from different classifications is that it boosts our learning, and we're able to incorporate and come up with new ideas on how we can further our experiences and learn different things from different people. So I think that's probably one of the bonuses of having such a diverse group.
It's always an interesting question how we came to this work. I think for me, it started when I was very young. I grew up in Louisiana, and being proud of who I was important, and navigating race was also important. So being able to become a professional and to integrate it into my work and career and the multiple hats that I wear has been a bit of a personal passion, I think.
Well, it's a passion you've generously shared with us, and I'm so glad you did. We met because we were both part of the 2016 GARE Northern California cohort.
Yes.
And we still are, as a team, the training team that's working on racial equity for the county of Marin. And so for me, it was very different. I had other concerns and things I was focused on throughout my life. But when I began to learn about racial equity, I think it caught fire, and it's something I will be working on for the rest of my life. It changed how I relate to the world and to my coworkers and to my job.
That learning and connecting across the profession has been huge for us as colleagues, but also now that we get to work together at Marin County Free Library, in the different things that we do, we come to the work every day, as we make budget decisions and think about when times are tight, how do we make sure that, as our mission says, equity and inclusion and public service and being welcoming, that we're doing that. That's one of the things that I focus on. I know that there are things that you focus on in your day-to-day work also.
I think it's really important that we walk our walk, and vitally important. The words don't matter, the actions matter. I've noticed that we're making progress. I was on a panel recently, and the applicants look quite different than they did 3 or 4 years ago. So I'm beginning to see success already, and it's intentional and important to us as an organization and as a county.
And as our programming shifts and as we look at our operations, we also realize that we are being the welcoming place that we intend to be, and increasingly patrons come to us. The new programs launched around social equity are being embraced. The partners that we have, the meetings that I know that you are often going to around educational equity in schools, that's the work that we can do, fulfill our mission as a library, but also as people find our passion. Talk some about the training work. I enjoy doing that with you.
I really love being a trainer. These are full day trainings, and everybody that works for the County of Marin is mandated to take cultural intelligence training. We developed this as a group, mainly under the direction of Chantal, and it's changed a little bit over time, but we love the training. We love giving it. We love the interactions that we have with people who are learning, and of course we are ourselves learners. Every time I teach, somebody tells me a story that really stays with me and becomes part of what I share.
So at a big picture level, I think for us, if you look at our system, we are thinking about our programming and serving the public. If you look internally, as Bonnie talked about, our workforce, And at a day-to-day level, one of the things that we both learned in GARE, I feel like, is in almost any decision, we can ask as staff people, as human beings in the broader world, who does this decision benefit and who does it burden? And if it consistently benefits only one group or consistently burdens only one group, then we need to rethink it and go broader.
It's true. It's a whole different systems way of thinking, and I think we've embraced it and internalized it. These days it comes naturally to me to think that way and to question, and that's where it starts.
So as MCFL staff, we invite you all to join us. We're learning every day, and we'd love to have everybody with us. We think you're there.
Come learn with us. Come play. It's really fun work.
So one of the neat things is we've come to the point in the conversation and the video for MCFL to really talk about what are the resources for moving forward. Certainly, our library has been a part of the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, and you've played a central role in looking at researching, writing about what libraries have done. Can you tell us a little bit about that resource, what we might find in it, and then we can talk more about other resources for learning about racial equity and equity.
Yeah, I would love to talk about it. It was such an incredible process to be a part of, to get to interview libraries from all around the country about the way that they're putting racial equity into practice. So through the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, the Libraries Interest Group, I had the opportunity to interview libraries, at least 6 libraries, to write long case studies about their work, to really show how they're taking the GARE framework, which is very concrete, for moving aspiration around equity to action, and to figure out how they were putting that into practice in ways both small and large. So everything from looking at computer lab access policies, to looking at hiring and retention, to looking at how they do community partnerships. We wrote 6 long case studies in addition to summarizing the GARE model, and dozens of other little examples that really show, not tell, what racial equity work can look like in practice.
That work and reading that paper, it was wonderful that MCFL was in it, of course, but in reading that paper, really thinking about how we can make small changes that have a large impact, and that the racial equity work really helps libraries do a better job with serving our multiple publics. Mm-hmm. One of the other things that we're working on inside and that we're both a part of is really looking at trainings and opportunities to learn about concretely in our practice racial equity in the context of libraries. Also some work that's being put together at MCFL around allyship and the role of that work. What's the role of that work and what might you learn from the allyship training?
Yeah, I think that work is so important because we have to all acknowledge that we're in a learning process together. Nobody knows how to fix the level of interpersonal and institutional structural racism present in our society alone. And so as a white person myself, I've really found that, reading, listening deeply to the experiences of people who are impacted by inequity, and going through numerous trainings, really at this point in my life over the course of 22 or 24 years, over and over again, has helped me deepen and constantly reflect, to think about what it means to be not just an ally, demonstrating an intellectual understanding of the issues, but constantly grappling with what it means to act to end racial inequity. And again, I don't have the answers, but I think that ongoing process of learning and being in training and being in process is what helps us move forward.
And these are some of the things ahead at MCFL. And we absolutely are starting with racial equity, though not to the exclusion of other kinds of difference, and making sure that the focus is on diversity and inclusion. We also have resources through our intranet that focus on TED Talks that are easy ways to enter the conversation around race and equity, as well as articles. But one of the most powerful pieces that I've seen is really the compilation that you have about what libraries are doing around equity right now. And as we continue to build this work around race and equity in MCFL, we're also looking for opportunities from you all to say, what are some things you want to learn and how do you want to learn them? I know many of us have deep commitments, certainly 2 of us here.
Yeah, I think that our internet is a great place to start because there's been a number of discussions and resources shared, like you said. The back of the Government Alliance on Race and Equity paper also includes a resources page, and I will say that the footnotes, like any good librarian, yes. The footnotes are a good roadmap for launching from. There's a lot of resources embedded in there that we quoted throughout the paper.
So please join us in the learning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, first and foremost, I think it continues with the idea that we're going to have intention to grow a diverse workforce, and we are looking at metrics for that. So we're really going to watch what our recruitments are, and again, what our retention is, to make sure that there's focus about keeping a diverse workforce. And then I think what the other part is, we have to understand that not everyone is in the same place in terms of understanding race and racial equity. So we've been very committed to putting the Equity Alliance together and making sure that there are tools and support, and to be willing to go meet people wherever they are. We think that's what libraries do best. So for some people, this is a new concept, especially some of the tough issues, like that we all have bias, and really being able to move through that bias. And I think we need to do more. But I think we have some really good foundational work of getting staff through fundamental training, and then I think we're going to kick it up a notch and try to make sure that training is more specific to the library profession and focus, and give even more tools for people to increase their knowledge. And then ultimately, the vision is to make sure that our workforce is absolutely as diverse as it possibly can be, and that everyone that works understands that it's intentional and important. I guess the one thing I want to say in the end is I was not the originator of the poster, "We Welcome All," but it is internalized and it's important. And it means that in every level that we can think of, it means that after you recruit and you get a more diverse workforce, that you welcome them. And that's not just a statement, that's an actual fact, both of purpose and practice. And then we replicate that to all of our community too. So if I was going to say anything to our whole community is, let's live and breathe, we welcome all.